Hi guys, and welcome to Debbie's Rusty Brush. Today what we're going to do is a dresser, actually a chest of drawers, and we're just going to do the repair portion on this, and then we will do another video that is the painting portion on this. I'll link them together in a playlist. I haven't named it yet, but if it works out to be anything like the picture that's in my head, I will be naming it Midnight Romance or Midnight Desire. Not sure which one yet, but something along those lines. So keep an eye out for that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn you here. All right, so this, sorry for the glare, is the piece that we're going to work on. Now, this is a very solid mid-80s piece. But it does need a little bit of repair. I am not a fan of this molding right here. It's very thin. It is tacked onto the bottom, so we're gonna take that off. These I would be okay with, but that one is broken. So I will be replacing the knobs on the top here. But the pulls on the bottom, I think I can make work with the knobs that I bought. I will just antique the gold a little bit with that, and I think we can use those. I will be trying to remove some of these scratches and such, because although I will have, let's see, although I will be using transfers and stencils and things, I will be painting this black. So all of those will show up, and I want to hide as much as possible. Now, this corner here has a little mar on it. It's sturdy but has that mar, so we will fix that. And the only other major damage is this piece right here. And it is chipped out really good. So I will show you how I fix that as well. And so we're basically, this video will be trying to remove this piece, fixing this and that, and how I go about it. And the rest of the little dings and things, I will use the same method that I use on these other two. And so to keep the video short enough, I'm just going to basically focus on that piece and that piece up there and removing this molding. Alright, so we are going to attempt to get this piece off of here. And I don't know how hard this will be to get this off, but let's pull this out of here. And we'll turn you down just a little bit. And as you can see, it is stapled in underneath here, and hopefully it pulls out relatively easy and off of there. They did this trim on a lot of these 80s pieces, which looked fine with the original design, not my favorite aesthetic, and will not look okay with what I'm doing. I could paint over it, I suppose, but I would just as soon remove it and just have it out of my life. So, let's see here. Get under it this direction. Maybe with this. Okay. There we go. right, let's put that back in there and see. Let's see, I think I got all of the it does have that little edging there. I think I will probably fill that as well as these pieces here. So, okay guys, it got really noisy outside, so I'm going to do a voiceover on this part. I am just using all-purpose Bondo to do this. Now they make a car Bondo, they make a wood Bondo. This is the all-purpose, and I'm just going to mix it up in a bowl. And you just take some of this out and you add the hardener and mix the hardener in really, really well. And now there's a formula on the can, but I just kind of wing it, and I've always ended up being about even with my hardener to my Bondo once I get to the end of the product. So I don't stress about it too much. The more hardener you put in, the faster it hardens up, but you want to make sure that you have enough that it does harden up. So I just squirt a little bit in there and mix it up really well. Now if you get the wood Bondo, the stuff that you squeeze in there is red, and you can really tell that you've got it mixed really well. Where this is white and the Bondo itself is kind of gray, it's really hard to tell how well you've got it mixed. But it is important that you work relatively quickly and get this mixed in there, because you don't want it to harden up before you have a chance to work with it. Now, I still typically need to mix up several small batches when I'm doing something versus a large batch, because I don't work it fast enough to use all of it if I make a larger batch. So I typically make a smaller batch that is more reasonable for me to use before it hardens up. A little bit more. I'm just going to fill that in. And I'm not looking for perfection, I just want to have enough product overfilled here to be able to shape it into a corner. So I'm just trying to get plenty on there to be able to shape into the corner that we want it to be. And I would prefer to do this without having to add a second coating of this. And so I believe that we're going to leave it right like that. And then let me sand it down to the shape that I want it to be. All right, so then on this piece, I am going to turn you guys back up. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm just going to fill over the top of it because it's just a little ding in there and maybe a little weak area, and this will strengthen it up and fill it up, and then we're going to go a little proud on that, and we will sand it back. Okay, and I wouldn't mind this row here, but it did damage right there a little bit, so I am going to go ahead and fill this. The other option is to go ahead and make a mold or get some wood you bent and put over that. But I have the Bondo, and so we're just going to use the Bondo. Again, this stuff is very, very hard when it's set up, and it will sand down pretty easily to become flat. So I am just going to fill this in. As you can tell, my Bondo is getting hard already. And I may have to mix up some more just because we are getting so hard to try to smooth it out here. Okay guys, so we're going to do a voiceover on this because the sander makes a lot of noise. Now I did speed this up a little bit so that you don't have to just sit and watch me sand. But what we're doing here, I did go ahead and fill some of the scratches. I also went ahead and took the handles off, and I found out that those use 2 screws. The knobs I'm putting on uses 1, so I went ahead and filled those. Now I am just using some 220 sandpaper, and I am going through and sanding the Bondo off. Now as you can see, I've already sanded up where the handles were there, and I am now doing down where that line was. I have filled some of the scratches. Now as I am sanding along, I didn't want to break through the veneer as I was sanding those scratches. So what I have done is I went ahead and filled them, and then as I sand them out, I get down to the wood, but once the Bondo is gone, I know it's smooth and I have not blown through my veneer. So that's how I'm just kind of gauging that. Now up here, this piece had not broken all the way through, so I just laid Bondo over it, and I'm just sanding it down until it's smooth, and you can see I'm running my hand over it to make sure that I don't have any ledges or edges on there. And then we just go through and sand some of the rest of this down. And as you can tell, the Bondo, where it wasn't needed, will just flake off in big chunks. And as I sand, and then the rest of it, like I said, I am just sanding. You can see me hit wood there as I'm sanding, and that's fine. I just don't want to break through that veneer, because that'll be a problem. So I am just sanding down to where that is smooth and there's no bumps in it. And even though the wood is showing, that's fine. We're getting smooth and not cutting through that veneer. So I am going to go ahead, because you guys don't need to necessarily watch me sand the whole thing, but I am going to get down here to where this corner was really chipped out. And I went ahead and I filled it, and I overfilled it so that I can sand it down to be flush with the drawer, and just shape that corner that was chipped out back into where it looks like it's never been repaired. So by time I paint it, it will be seamless with the drawer itself. And so I'm just going to sand and shape and get the front and the back, because I did put some filler on the back, because I wanted to fill it proud front, back, and on the sides there, so that I could sand down to get the right look. There's a couple ways that you could do this. You could take a molding compound and make a mold of another corner and fill it that way. You could use hot glue. I've seen that done, and make a mold and fill it that way. This is just a one step for me. I just have to fill it and then sand it. I don't have to make the mold. I don't have to fill it. I don't have to sand it. So I'm just saving a step by doing this. If it was a huge repair, I would probably make a mold, but this was just a little teeny area. And so I chose to just do it this way and skip that extra step. So then I'm just going to sand down the rest of the Bondo that I've got on there to make sure that it's smooth. And here, as you can tell, I've got that corner perfectly shaped. All right, guys, so that's today's video. How to fill and reconstruct corners on a piece of furniture or on a drawer. If it had been a bigger area that needed to be repaired, we would have made a mold and we would have gone about it that way. But because it was a small area, it was easy enough to fill it a little proud with our Bondo and to sand it back to be the consistency that we wanted it to be, so that it was the thickness it needed to be. There's no lumps or bumps. It sanded in really well, and it wasn't a clean break, so there was pieces in there for the Bondo to stick to, as well as just that one edge. So it worked out really well. And this is just the first video to this dresser makeover, so I hope you follow along with the rest of it. And I appreciate you guys hanging out this week. If you like my videos, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, hit the little bell notification, and share with your friends. All right, thanks for hanging out. Bye-bye. See you next week.